Welcome back, everyone. In the last video, we discussed about creating a batch so that we can add all of our objects to this collection in one successful transaction. So to do this, we need to use that write batch method that we imported from Firebase Firestore. So here, how to use it is we need to instantiate a batch class by saying, hey, I want to make a batch, and this batch is going to call write batch. Write batch is going to return me a batch, and we have to pass it the database that we're trying to make this batch on. So as you've seen with this trend, we just always pass the database to whatever these methods that we've imported are. So now that I have this batch instance, what batch allows me to do is attach a bunch of different, let's say, writes, deletes, sets, whatever. We can attach all of those to the batch, and only when we're ready to fire off the batch does the actual transaction begin. So what we need to do is we need to create a bunch of set methods, or not set methods, but set events. Because each of these objects we're saying, hey, I want you to create and set that object into this collection as a new document for me. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, objects to add for each. So for each of these objects, I want you to batch set for me. So here we're going to receive this object. And if you remember, this object is inside of the shop data. It's each of these category objects here with the title and the items array. This is what we're adding in. So each of these is the object, and we have 5, as you can see here, 5 different objects. So how we're going to do this is inside of Firebase Utils, again, with this object now, I first want to get the document reference. So to get the document reference, I'm going to make one called docref. And this is equal to calling the doc method, which we've done before when we got the user doc method, except in passing it DB, I'm going to pass it the collection ref. Because the collection ref actually tells directly this doc method which database we're using. Because we got this collection ref from calling collection where the DB was already passed. So this doc is smart enough to know, oh, you're giving me a collection ref. Most likely you got it because you've already told that collection ref what DB it's from. So then with this collection ref, what we also need to get this document is the title or the key. What is the value, the key value here? So here, these are actually the title on the object. So I'm going to say, hey, give me object, give me the title, but then lowercase it. Because right now it's in normal case, meaning the first letter is capitalized. Then what we want to do is we want to say, okay, I want you to batch.set on this document reference, because as we know, Firebase will give us back a document reference even if it doesn't exist yet. It will just point to that place for this specific key inside of our collection. And now what we're saying is, hey, set that location and set it with the value of the object itself. You can pass it some JSON object and it will build out that structure for you. And this is our entire batch. Then what we need to do is we need to await actually firing off this batch. Because what happened is that we iterated over each individual object in the array. We added an additional batch set call on there, creating a new document reference for each of those objects where the key is the title and the value is the object itself. So now we say batch.commit, and this will begin firing it off. And then when we're done, we can just quickly console log done to ourselves so we know it's finished. So I want to save this. I want to come over to my products context, and then I want to import it in. So I want to import in addCollectionAndDocuments from our utils/Firebase/Firebase utils. And then what we want to do is we want to fire this off once. So one important thing here is I'm going to use a use effect. And for this use effect, what I'm going to say is just use effect should fire only once. And what we fire is this addCollectionDocuments with both the string of categories, because that's the name that I want for the collection. And then we're going to pass the shop data as the actual objects we're trying to add. So now what I want to do is I want to save this, and inside, just make sure that it ran successfully. If it did, we should see done, which we do. Now, if we go back to our Firestore and we refresh, what we see we should see the new categories collection here, which we do. And inside we see our different documents that reflect our different categories now. So there we go. What I also want to do though is make sure that I delete this use effect, because every time you run it, it's going to try and set new values inside of the database, which we don't want to do. We just wanted to do this as a one-off thing. Typically what happens is you wouldn't do this on your front end, but just for us, because we're only controlling it on the front end and we have access to all these documents, I figured it's a good time for you to at least see how you might interact with Firebase when it comes to storing values in your database. And we also learned about batch along the way. So now that we're done with these, we don't need these values anymore. I'm going to keep this import and this use effect because in the next lesson, it's actually important for us, because what we need to work on now that the data is inside of Firestore is to pull that data down. But at the very least, we now have the data inside of Firestore, and we now have some method that we can utilize. If you don't want it to be title, you can make this more generic, because here right now we're saying, hey, directly, I'm going to pull this off of objects to add, when in fact, this might not always be present on these objects. I know that I said this would be generic, but in this particular case here, we just wanted to use the title to get this through. In your particular case, you can pass some additional field value, which designates which of these values you want to use. So here you could do it like so, like that. And then now you just pass the field in as a third argument. So in our particular case, this would have been equal to the string of title. That's another way you can do this to make this work. You can also pass this dynamically inside if you want as well. There's numerous ways you can do this. But for us, at the very least, with what we needed, we just needed to get the title. But here we have this inside of our Firestore. And now that we have our data in Firestore, let's pull it into our application and figure out how to use it. So with that, I'll see you in the next video.